pay close attention. If you are here right now watching this at this exact moment, it is not an accident. A higher force has guided you here. And I dare to say it's not only about you. It's about the people who look up to you. The ones who depend on you. The family members who silently count on your strength to keep everything together. Maybe you've carried that weight for a long time. The responsibility to provide, to protect, to ensure stability. And maybe you've wondered in the quiet of the night how you'll ever be able to create not just survival, but overflowing prosperity when the world keeps showing you bills, debts, and constant struggle. Consider this. Maybe the solution isn't about effort or exhaustion, but something far simpler already within your reach. What if the answer was already sitting quietly in your own home, waiting to be used in a way no one ever taught you? I'm talking about something so ordinary, so familiar that it's probably in your kitchen right now, a simple spoonful of ground coffee beans. Before I explain why this ordinary substance can become one of the most powerful spiritual tools to attract money and break scarcity patterns that may have haunted your family for generations, I want you to do two things. First, hit the like button because that tells me you're serious about this transformation. Second, write a powerful declaration in the comments. Prosperity belongs to me and my family. Don't type anything else. Type those exact words, because when you declare it with clarity, you are sending a direct message to the creation itself that you are done repeating the cycles of lack and struggle. You are claiming that overflowing prosperity is not just for you, but for everyone who depends on you. Now breathe deeply, because what I'm about to share is not another internet trick, not a superstition, not just positive thinking. This is a spiritual key. Florence Scovel Shinn taught more than a century ago that any element in your life can be charged with the right words and vibration, and it becomes a vessel for prosperity. And coffee, especially ground coffee beans, holds a memory, a potency, a frequency that makes it one of the strongest carriers of overflowing prosperity energy. You're about to understand why, but for now, just know this. You didn't stumble across this video. You were guided here, and the timing is not random. It's perfect. While most people are still running themselves into the ground, convinced that wealth only comes from endless struggle, you're about to see that prosperity is not something you chase. It's something you embody. It's an identity you step into. And the most extraordinary part? It can begin with something as simple as holding 2 spoonfuls of ground coffee beans in your hands. It's not about the coffee. It's about what you do with it, what it represents, and how it can shift your energy from lack to overflow. Think about it for a moment. When you open a jar of coffee, the aroma spreads instantly, filling the room with its presence. Coffee is energy awakening vitality. Now imagine directing that energy with intention, transforming it into a sacred act that breaks generations of scarcity and opens invisible channels for money to flow into your home. That's what is about to unfold. But understand this clearly, this knowledge is not for everyone. It is not for those who would rather cling to disbelief. Those who still think they are doomed to repeat the lives of financial struggle they inherited. It is for the ones who are ready. The ones who have decided their families will no longer live under the shadow of lack. It is for you if you feel in your bones that this message is speaking directly to you. And if you already feel it stirring something deep inside, if something in you whispers, "This is the answer I've been searching for," then don't wait. Hit the subscribe button right now because on this channel, every video is not just content. It is an activation, a key that unlocks another door to the prosperity that has been waiting for you. And for those who want to plant as well as receive, there is another way to support this work. You can use the Super Thanks button. But I don't want you to see this as just a donation. I want you to see it for what it truly is, a seed. Every time you plant a seed, whether it's 1,005 or 10, that energy does not leave your life. It returns to you multiplied. Giving and receiving are two sides of the same law. What you offer in faith returns enlarged, blessed, multiplied. Florence herself said, "No gift ever leaves your life. It always circles back greater than before." So right now you have a choice. You can treat this video as just another passing curiosity. Or you can recognize it as the divine nudge that it truly is. The invitation to cross the threshold into a new identity. One where overflowing prosperity flows not just to you, but through you into your entire family line. Type in the comments, "Prosperity belongs to me and my family." Declare it, feel it, and prepare yourself, because in the next moments, you're going to see how something as simple as ground coffee beans can become the ritual that changes your financial destiny forever. Just 3 days ago, I opened my inbox and found an email from a subscriber of this channel. I receive many messages every week, but this one carried a different kind of energy. Even before I opened it, I felt something stir in me, as if this story was meant to be shared. The subject line read, "The water changed everything." And when I clicked, I found a message from a woman named Emily, a mother of 2 from Dallas, who wanted me to share her experience with you. She wrote, "Please tell this story because someone out there is in the exact place I was, and they need to know what's possible." Emily's words struck me because she could easily be you. Just a week earlier, she was drowning in bills, her fridge half empty, and the constant fear of not being able to provide for her kids pressing on her chest every night. She told me about the shame she carried when she had to say no to simple things her children asked for: an ice cream after school, a new pair of sneakers, even just a night out together as a family. She said it wasn't the money itself that hurt the most, but the feeling of letting her kids down. That pain can break anyone's spirit, and she was living in it every single day. She had already tried everything. She cut her expenses to the bone. She picked up extra shifts at work, staying on her feet until her back ached. She even sold some furniture and a few pieces of jewelry that had sentimental value, just to keep the electricity from being shut off. But the more she fought, the heavier it seemed to become. "It was like being stuck in quicksand," she wrote. "The harder I struggled, the deeper I sank." Then one night, while sitting at her kitchen table past midnight, staring at unpaid bills spread out in front of her, Emily came across my video on the water ritual for overflowing prosperity. She admitted she almost scrolled past it. "I've tried so many techniques," she said. "Affirmations, vision boards, journaling, meditation apps. Every single one left me disappointed. But something about water, a substance so simple, so familiar, so essential, pulled her attention. Maybe it was because water was already right there in her kitchen. She didn't need to buy anything. She didn't need to wait for the right time. She just needed to try." That night, she filled a glass with water, held it in both hands, and whispered the words I had taught. "This water carries my wealth. As I drink, every cell receives overflowing prosperity." She admitted she felt silly at first, even embarrassed, alone in her kitchen talking to a glass of water. But then something shifted as she spoke those words. Her shoulders dropped, the tension in her chest softened, and suddenly tears began to flow. Not tears of despair, but tears of release. For the first time in months, she felt like she wasn't fighting alone, like the creation itself had leaned in and said, "I hear you." She drank that water slowly, one sip at a time, as if each swallow carried a promise that she was safe, that provision was already on its way. By the time the glass was empty, she felt something she hadn't felt in a long time: relief. And as she went to bed, she repeated the phrase, "It's already done," until sleep overtook her. She told me, "I fell asleep not with anxiety in my chest, but with peace in my bones." The next morning, Emily woke up feeling different. Not because her bank account had changed overnight, but because her heart had. She described it as a lightness, a small flame of hope flickering where only fear had lived before. Normally, the very first thing she did upon waking was check her bank balance, almost like a reflex of panic. But that morning, she resisted. Instead, before opening her eyes fully, she whispered to herself, "I am already wealthy." She repeated it as she brushed her teeth, as she made breakfast for her kids, as she packed their lunches. For the first time, she wrote, "I felt like I wasn't waiting for money. I was already living as someone who had it." At 11:15 a.m., less than 12 hours after she had done the ritual, her phone buzzed with an email notification. The subject line made her freeze. Unpaid overtime settlement. She clicked it, hardly breathing, and there it was, a message from a company she had worked for 3 years earlier. They had run an audit, discovered an accounting error, and owed her $200,400 in unpaid overtime. The money had already been approved, processed, and would reach her account within 2 business days. Emily said. She literally dropped her phone on the kitchen counter, her hands shaking. "This can't be real," she thought. "I just did a ritual with water, and now money is showing up out of nowhere." But the story doesn't end there. That same afternoon, a client she had been chasing for months finally paid a long overdue invoice. The very next day, her sister called unexpectedly and said she wanted to return money Emily had lent her years ago. In less than 48 hours, Emily went from fearing disconnection, notices, to having enough not only to pay her bills, but to breathe, to plan, to finally feel like she wasn't drowning anymore. And yet, the most powerful part of her email wasn't even about the money. Emily wrote, "What changed wasn't just my bank account, it was me. I realized I had been living in the frequency of fear. And when I shifted into the frequency of overflowing prosperity, everything began to change." The water wasn't magic. I was let that sink in. She didn't stumble on luck. She didn't beg or chase or hustle harder. She shifted her identity, even if only for a moment, and the creation itself responded instantly. This is not exception, it's principle. This is what Florence Scovel Shinn taught over a century ago, that your inner state always precedes your outer reality. Now pause and imagine this with me. If a single glass of water charged with intention could unlock such a radical shift in less than 2 days, what happens when you apply the same principle to something even more powerful? Something that carries vitality, awakening, and grounding energy. Something that humanity has used for centuries as a symbol of renewal, connection, and life itself. That is what happens when you use ground coffee beans as a ritual for wealth and overflowing prosperity. And this is exactly where we are heading. But I want you to understand this clearly. Emily's transformation began the moment she said yes. Not the moment the money arrived, but the moment she stopped saying someday and started saying it's already done. You have that same choice right now. So before we move into the details of the coffee ritual, I want you to declare your own decision. Type these words in the comments right now. I am ready for my 48 hours. Don't just write them casually. Write them with intention, with power, as if your future self is watching you declare it. Because this is not just engagement, not just another comment. This is your spiritual contract. It is your line in the sand. It is the signal to the creation itself that you are done waiting, and you are ready to live as the wealthy, abundant being you were always meant to be. Now that you've heard Emily's story with the water ritual, it's time to take the next step. Because if water can carry intention and unlock financial blessings, imagine what happens when we use something even more symbolic. Something that humans across every culture have turned to for energy, awakening, and daily renewal. That's right. I'm talking about coffee. And not coffee that you drink, not the brewed liquid that most of us sip each morning, but the raw, untouched form. The ground coffee beans themselves. Coffee grounds are more than just a powder we use to prepare a beverage. They are seeds that have been roasted, crushed, and transformed. Think about that for a moment. Every single grain of ground coffee beans is a fragment of a seed that once carried potential, vitality, and life. And when you hold those grounds in your hands, you are literally holding the memory of transformation. Soil turned into seed. Seed turned into plant. Plant turned into harvest. Harvest turned into energy. Coffee carries the entire cycle of creation inside it. That is why it becomes such a powerful vessel for manifesting wealth. So let's begin. I'm going to guide you step by step, slowly and carefully, so there is no confusion, no doubt, and no hesitation. If you have ground coffee beans in your home, you already have everything you need. If you don't, the next time you're at the store, pick up a simple bag. Nothing fancy is required. This ritual is about energy, not expense. Start with 1 or 2 tablespoons of ground coffee beans. Place them in a small bowl or even in the palm of your hand, if that feels right to you. Don't worry about measuring perfectly. What matters is that you have enough to feel the weight and texture in your hand. Close your eyes for a moment and notice what you're holding. Feel the grainy texture, the earthy scent, the richness of the aroma rising toward you. Coffee grounds awaken the senses naturally. They demand your presence, and presence is the key to manifestation. As you hold the grounds, I want you to take a slow, deep breath. Inhale through your nose, letting the rich scent of the coffee travel into your body, awakening your awareness. Exhale through your mouth, releasing the energy of scarcity, lack, and worry. Do this 3 times with full attention. With each inhale, you are pulling in vitality, energy, and the frequency of overflowing prosperity. With each exhale, you are dissolving fear, dissolving debt consciousness, dissolving every old story that told you wealth wasn't yours. Now, whisper these words softly, as if you are speaking directly to the creation itself through the grounds. These seeds carry my overflowing prosperity. As they expand, so does my wealth. It is already done. Don't just recite the words. Feel them. Imagine that each grain of coffee is like a seed of prosperity planted into the soil of your life. Every particle holds potential. Every particle carries multiplication. As you hold them, you are holding the future wealth of your family, your home, your generations. This is not imagination. It is a transfer of energy. The ground coffee beans are absorbing the vibration of your voice, the frequency of your belief, the imprint of your intention. Just as water carries memory, so do these grounds. And as you breathe, speak, and feel, they become a magnet for wealth, storing your prosperity consciousness within them. Once you've spoken the words, gently place the grounds back into the bowl and set them somewhere safe in your home. It doesn't have to be a sacred altar. Your kitchen counter, your desk, even your nightstand will do. What matters is that you place them with reverence, as if you've just planted a seed. Over the next 48 hours, those grounds are no longer ordinary coffee. They are charged with your wealth frequency, and the creation itself is already reorganizing itself in response. But here is the crucial part. You must carry the feeling with you. This is not about leaving the grounds in a bowl and forgetting them. It's about letting the ritual remind you, throughout the day, that your wealth is already done. Each time you catch a whiff of the coffee aroma, each time you see the bowl sitting quietly in your space, let it anchor you back into the feeling of overflowing prosperity. Whisper again if you need to. It's already done. Now, some of you may ask, what do I do with the ground coffee beans after the ritual is complete? That is something we will talk about in a later block, because the way you release them is as important as the way you begin. But for now, I want you to simply hold the experience in your heart. Tonight, before bed, repeat the ritual again. Hold 1 or 2 tablespoons of ground coffee beans. Breathe deeply, whisper the words, and fall asleep in the feeling of wealth already secured. Remember, manifestation is not about forcing results. It is about shifting identity. When Emily drank her glass of water, she wasn't begging for money. She was embodying wealth. And within 48 hours, reality had no choice but to align. You are doing the same now, only with an even stronger vessel. The grounds of coffee, ancient seeds transformed through fire, carry a frequency of awakening. They are here to awaken your wealth consciousness, in the same way they awaken your physical body each morning. And let me tell you something you may not have realized. You didn't stumble on this video by accident. Just like Emily didn't stumble on the water ritual by accident, you were guided here. Maybe your higher self brought you. Maybe your ancestors. Maybe the divine itself whispered your name into the algorithm so that these words would find you. Whatever the path, you are here because it is time. Your 48 hours start the moment you say yes. So let's seal this part of the ritual together. Take a breath. Whisper once more. These seeds carry my overflowing prosperity. As they expand, so does my wealth. It is already done. And then if you are ready to claim this, declare it in the comments right now. My wealth has begun. Not tomorrow. Not someday, right now. And for those of you who feel called to go deeper, to plant not only spiritual seeds, but also seeds of gratitude, you can support this channel through the Super Thanks button. When you give, whether it's 1 or 10, you are not just supporting me. You are sending out a seed of overflowing prosperity that the universe will return to you multiplied. Florence Scovel Shinn taught that every gift given with love comes back multiplied. And this is your chance to test that law for yourself. Now, stay with me, because what I've just shared with you is only the beginning. We've planted the seed, but in the next block, I'm going to show you why the 48-hour window is the most powerful spiritual timing you'll ever experience and why it is the exact period Florence insisted upon for manifestation to lock in. Without this timing, the ritual loses its force. With it, you will see signs so unmistakable, you won't be able to dismiss them as coincidence. By now, you might be asking yourself a simple but very important question. Why 48 hours? Why not 1 day or 1 week or 30 days, like so many manifestation teachers talk about? Why did Florence Scovel Shinn, more than a century ago, insist on this precise window of time? The answer to that question is the difference between another vague hope and a reality shift so strong that it feels undeniable. Let's begin with something simple. Your current relationship with money, whatever it looks like, didn't appear overnight. It is the result of years, sometimes decades, of repetition. Words spoken by your parents when you were a child. Experiences that taught you to fear bills. To feel shame when you couldn't afford something. To believe that only hard labor brings reward. Each of those experiences carved deep grooves in your subconscious, like water carving channels into stone. Those grooves became your default pathway. That is why even when you try to think positively or imagine a better future, you keep slipping back into the same old patterns. But here's the secret Florence discovered. Those grooves are not permanent. They only remain because you keep reinforcing them every day. Every time you check your bank account in fear, every time you repeat to yourself, "I can't afford this." Every time you envy someone else's overflowing prosperity, you are laying another brick in the prison of lack. And yet, the moment you stop feeding that pattern, it begins to dissolve. The moment you hold a new state consistently, your subconscious begins to rewrite the code. Why 48 hours? Because that is the minimum time your subconscious requires to accept a new identity and begin to reorganize reality around it. 24 hours isn't enough. The old identity snaps back too quickly. A week, on the other hand, is too long. Your logical mind steps in, doubt grows, resistance builds, and you collapse under the weight of impatience. But 48 hours, that is the sweet spot. Long enough for the old pattern to weaken. Short enough that your rational mind doesn't have time to destroy the process. Think of it like fire catching onto wood. Strike a match and the flame might last a few seconds. That's like a single affirmation or a few hours of positive thinking. The spark is real, but it doesn't last. Keep feeding the flame for one full day, and the wood begins to warm, but the fire is still fragile. Add one more day. Keep the flame alive just a little longer, and suddenly the fire takes over, unstoppable, self-sustaining. That is what 48 hours does for your wealth consciousness. It transforms a fragile spark into an irreversible blaze. Florence saw this with her own students during the Great Depression when external circumstances looked utterly hopeless. People had lost homes, jobs, entire fortunes. And yet those who could hold the wealthy state of mind for 48 hours straight without checking, without doubting, without slipping back saw breakthroughs. Sometimes it was money appearing from forgotten sources. Sometimes it was unexpected opportunities or gifts. Sometimes it was simply the right person arriving at the right time. But always without fail, something shifted within that 2-day window. And modern science now gives us language for what Florence already knew. Neuroscientists have shown that new neural pathways begin to stabilize after 2 days of consistent reinforcement. Your brain literally starts wiring itself for a new reality. Your nervous system begins to relax out of survival mode. Your heart rhythm changes. Your electromagnetic field, the invisible signal you broadcast to the creation itself, locks into a new frequency. In 2 days, your entire being starts to vibrate as someone who already has wealth. And reality must respond. But here's the most important part. Those 48 hours are not about waiting for proof. They are about refusing to need proof. They are about becoming so committed to the feeling of wealth that evidence becomes irrelevant. That commitment is what bends reality. That commitment is what forces the invisible supply to reveal itself. Now, let me pause here and tell you something very important, because what I've explained so far is only part of the mystery. Florence Scovel Shinn hinted at something deeper, something almost hidden in her writings. She believed that while the 48-hour window creates the shift, there is one final key, a word, a declaration that seals the process permanently. Without it, she said, the shift can wobble. With it, the manifestation locks in like stone. I'm going to share that word with you. But not now. Because here's the truth. It will only mean something if you hear it after you've walked through the entire journey. If I gave it to you now, it would just be another phrase, another affirmation lost in your memory. But if you stay with me until the very end of this teaching, when you've already entered the rhythm of the ritual, when you've passed through the resistance points and tasted the first signs of change, then the word will land in your heart like lightning. And from that moment, nothing will be able to shake it from you. So listen carefully. Stay with me, because in the final block of this video, I will reveal the exact word Florence used to seal her students' manifestations. The word she said was the golden key. Miss it, and you risk walking away with only half the ritual. Stay and you will walk away with a power that cannot be undone. For now, take this in. 48 hours is not arbitrary. It is sacred timing. It is the perfect balance between surrender and persistence, between trust and transformation. It is the amount of time required for the old you to die and the new you to be born. And when you commit to it fully, your life will never be the same. So, let me ask you, are you willing to hold wealth consciousness for 48 hours, no matter what your senses say? If you are, write it in the comments. My 48 hours begin now. Let this be your declaration, your promise, your entry into the window that changes everything. And as you write those words, know this. The ground coffee beans you held in your hands are no longer just grounds. They are seeds of wealth waiting to sprout. The 2 days ahead are the fertile soil. And in the final moments of this journey, I will place in your hands the one word that locks it all in forever. Let's pause for a moment and look at what's actually happening when you hold those ground coffee beans in your hands. Because if this were just a matter of wishful thinking, of empty affirmations, you wouldn't be here. You've tried that before, and it didn't work. But when Florence Scovel Shinn talked about feeling being the secret, she wasn't speaking in vague poetry. She was describing something we can now measure, something science is finally catching up to. Here's the first truth you need to understand. Your brain does not distinguish between what is vividly imagined with emotion and what is physically real. That means when you hold ground coffee beans and declare, "These seeds carry my overflowing prosperity," and you truly feel the relief and confidence of wealth, your brain fires the exact same neural circuits it would fire if you had just deposited $10,000 into your account. To your subconscious mind, both are the same. And because your subconscious runs your reality, far more than your logical mind, that distinction, or rather the lack of it, is everything. Neuroscientists like Dr. Joe Dispenza have shown that when you combine a clear intention with elevated emotion, your brain begins what he calls a neurological software upgrade. You literally rewire your circuits. New neural pathways are laid down like new highways in your brain, signaling your body to prepare for a new life. Within 2 days, these pathways begin to stabilize. That's why Florence emphasized the 48-hour window, because science now confirms that 2 days of consistent identity is enough for the brain to begin favoring the new pattern over the old. But it goes deeper. When you feel wealthy, not just think it, but feel it in your chest, your breath, your skin. Your nervous system shifts out of survival mode. Most of us live with our sympathetic nervous system stuck on high alert, stress hormones flooding our body, muscles tense, breathing shallow. In this state, your brain literally shuts down the parts responsible for creativity and opportunity. You can't see solutions because your body is locked in fight or flight. The moment you relax into overflowing prosperity, when you whisper over those ground coffee beans, it's already done. Your parasympathetic nervous system activates. Your body enters rest and receive mode. Suddenly, your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain that sees possibilities and patterns, lights back up. You begin noticing opportunities that were invisible before. Your timing improves. You say yes to the right call. You send the right message at the right moment. This isn't coincidence. It's biology aligning with your intention. And then there's your heart. The HeartMath Institute discovered that your heart produces an electromagnetic field 60 times stronger than the one generated by your brain. This field extends several feet beyond your body. When you charge those ground coffee beans with the feeling of wealth, your heart broadcasts that frequency into the quantum field around you. It's like planting a beacon of overflowing prosperity that rearranges probabilities in your favor. That's why opportunities suddenly appear. Why forgotten debts are repaid. Why money flows from directions you never considered. The field is responding to your broadcast. Think about this. In the famous double-slit experiment, scientists discovered that particles behave differently when observed. Observation itself changes reality. What you focus on with feeling literally collapses infinite possibilities into one outcome. When you hold ground coffee beans with the assumption of wealth, you're collapsing the probabilities of lack and scarcity and solidifying the probability of overflowing prosperity. Florence didn't have the words quantum physics, but she knew this truth by faith. Consciousness creates reality. Even your chemistry changes. When you spend 2 days in wealth consciousness, your cortisol levels drop, meaning less stress, less panic, less fear. At the same time, your dopamine and serotonin rise, which not only make you feel better, but also make you magnetic to others. People are drawn to those who carry this chemistry because they unconsciously sense opportunity, safety, and expansion. Your biology makes you a magnet. And here's something fascinating about coffee itself. Studies show that the aroma of coffee alone can alter brain activity, reducing stress and sharpening focus. Now imagine combining that natural neurological effect with spiritual intention. When you inhale the scent of ground coffee beans while declaring wealth, you're not only awakening your senses, you're embedding your intention into a biological state of clarity, alertness, and receptivity. The ritual works on multiple levels: physical, emotional, energetic. There's also something called the reticular activating system, or RAIS. It's the filter in your brain that decides what information reaches your conscious mind. If you've ever bought a new car and suddenly noticed that same car everywhere, that's your RA at work. It doesn't show you reality as it is. It shows you reality based on what you believe matters. For years, your RA has been tuned to scarcity. It highlights bills, problems, lack. But when you declare over those ground coffee beans that wealth is your natural state, you begin retuning your RA to seek and notice overflowing prosperity. Suddenly, opportunities you would have ignored stand out. Solutions seem to appear out of nowhere. In truth, they were always there. You simply couldn't see them until your filter changed. So, let's put this all together. In the span of 48 hours, holding the feeling of wealth over something, as ordinary yet powerful as ground coffee beans, you are rewiring your brain, calming your nervous system, shifting your heart's electromagnetic field, broadcasting into the quantum field, reprogramming your RA, and aligning your biology with overflowing prosperity. Tell me, does that sound like mere superstition? Or does it sound like a multi-layered transformation that touches every level of your being? This is why Florence's teachings endure a century later, because they weren't just inspirational. They were practical codes for working with consciousness. She taught that when you align your feeling with truth, the creation itself reorganizes in your favor. And today, science echoes her. Neurons, hormones, fields, and frequencies all bend toward the state you choose to embody. So when you hold that bowl of ground coffee beans tonight, remember you're not just playing with an old superstition. You're engaging your brain, your body, your energy field, and the quantum fabric of reality itself. You are collapsing scarcity and stabilizing overflowing prosperity. And in 2 days, you will see signs that cannot be denied. But, and this is crucial, along the way, your old self will resist. Doubt will creep in. Logic will fight back. The next block is about preparing you for that. Because if you can anticipate the resistance, if you can recognize it for what it is, the death cries of your old scarcity identity, then you will move through it instead of being trapped by it. And that is the difference between giving up halfway and reaching the breakthrough. So breathe deeply, hold on to the truth, and type in the comments right now. Science and spirit agree. Wealth is mine. Let this be your declaration that you're not just here for motivation, but for transformation at every level. Now that you know how this works, it's time for me to tell you the truth most teachers leave out. The next 48 hours will not be a smooth ride. They will feel powerful. Yes, even miraculous, but they will also bring resistance. And you need to understand this. Resistance is not a sign of failure. It is a sign of transformation. It is the old you, the identity that survived on scarcity, fighting for its life as the new you is born. Florence Scovel Shinn used to say, "One fear shows up the loudest. It means your miracle is the nearest." And she was right. Your ego, your logic, your old beliefs, they will try every trick to pull you back. But if you know exactly when and how this resistance will appear, you won't be caught off guard. You'll smile when it comes because you'll recognize it for what it is. Proof that you're breaking free. The first resistance usually comes within the first few hours. You've just done the ritual. You've whispered over your ground coffee beans. You felt wealth in your chest. And then suddenly your mind whispers, "This is stupid. Nothing is going to change. You're just wasting your time." That voice isn't truth. It's habit. It's the echo of every time you've tried something before and felt disappointed. When this voice comes, don't argue with it. Don't fight. Just breathe and say calmly, "Thank you for sharing." But it's already done. That simple response disarms it. And soon the voice fades. The second resistance comes the next morning. You wake up and for a fleeting moment you feel light, abundant, free. But then your logical brain switches on, and you feel the urge to check your account, to look for evidence. And when you don't see thousands of dollars instantly, the panic rushes in. This is the moment most people give up. But you must remember, you're not waiting for proof. You're becoming proof. You don't check the soil 5 minutes after planting a seed to see if it sprouted. You trust the process. Whisper, "It's already done." And step into your day as though the money is already there. That's the test. The third resistance comes in the afternoon of the first day, when the weight of responsibilities presses in, bills to pay, calls to return, errands to run. Your old self will try to use these pressures as evidence that nothing has changed. But here's the secret. Handle your responsibilities as though you already have plenty. Pay that bill with gratitude that it's covered. Send that email with the calm confidence of someone who is supported. The circumstances may look the same, but you are not the same. And that shift is everything. By the 24-hour mark, the fourth resistance appears. Comparison. You'll notice everyone who seems to have more. A friend posts a vacation photo. A neighbor drives a new car. Your coworker talks about their bonus. And suddenly the voice says, "Look at them. You're behind. You're failing." This isn't coincidence. It's your old identity using comparison to pull you back. The antidote is simple. Celebrate them. See their wealth as proof that overflowing prosperity exists all around you. Say to yourself, if it's possible for them, it's possible for me. Abundance is everywhere. What once triggered envy now becomes fuel. The fifth resistance usually comes at hour 30. This is the logic attack. Suddenly your brain creates a brilliant argument for why this cannot work. It will bring up statistics, your past failures, the economy, your education, your circumstances. It will sound intelligent. It will sound convincing. But remember, logic works in the visible world. You are working in consciousness, the invisible world that creates the visible. Florence called logic the jailer of men's souls. When this attack comes, don't debate. Don't get lost in reasoning. Just return to the feeling. Whisper, "It's already done," and rest there. Around hour 36, the sixth resistance strikes, impatience. You've held the state for a day and a half. You've felt the shift. You've whispered the words. And yet, where is it? Why hasn't anything appeared? The urge to quit, to declare it useless, becomes overwhelming. This is the ego's last attempt to survive. Think of it as labor pains before birth. The discomfort signals that the breakthrough is near. When impatience comes, smile and say, this means I'm close. Take a breath, return to the feeling of wealth, and carry on. And then comes the seventh and final test, hour 44. With just a few hours left, something may happen that seems designed to break you. An unexpected bill, an argument, bad news, something that screams, "See, nothing is changing." This is not failure. This is the old reality giving you one last chance to choose. Will you believe what your senses scream, or will you hold the invisible truth until it becomes visible? If you stand firm here, if you hold the feeling despite the storm, the old self dies and the new self is born. This is the moment Florence called the crossing. On the other side lies proof that cannot be denied. Now I want you to hear this clearly. Every resistance you face is not a wall but a doorway. Each one asks, do you want to return to who you were or step into who you are becoming? When you choose wealth over fear, even in the smallest moment, you gain what Florence called spiritual muscle. And just like physical muscle, it grows with repetition. Each victory makes the next resistance easier to overcome. Sarah from Boston, the woman I told you about earlier with the water ritual, wrote to me about these resistances too. She said when the impatience hit on day 2, she nearly gave up. But then she remembered. Impatience means it's close. She leaned back, whispered, "It's already done." And within hours, the money she had been waiting for arrived. Her words were simple but powerful. The resistance wasn't stopping me. It was proof that I was almost there. So, as you step into your own 48 hours, expect resistance. Welcome it. See it as evidence of progress. And most of all, remember this. The only way to fail is to quit. If you keep choosing the wealthy state, if you keep whispering, "It's already done." No matter what arises, the breakthrough must come. Right now. Declare it in the comments. I am ready for all 7. This isn't just a phrase. It's your vow to stand tall when the old self tries to drag you back. It's your promise to yourself and to the creation itself that you won't stop halfway. And as you type those words, feel them. See yourself already on the other side because you are. By now, you understand the heart of the 40R process. You know how to hold your ground coffee beans, how to whisper the truth, how to embody wealth as if it were already here. That alone is enough to change your financial reality. But Florence Scovel Shinn also understood something profound. Different souls respond to different triggers. Some of you will find that the basic ritual works beautifully. Others will feel called to add layers, to amplify the energy, to create a kind of spiritual resonance that makes results arrive faster, louder, and in ways so undeniable that even your most skeptical friends will be stunned. What I'm about to share are not requirements. They are amplifiers. Think of the original ritual as a violin, beautiful, capable of stirring hearts on its own. These variations are like adding strings, percussion, and harmonies until your intention becomes a full symphony echoing into the creation itself. The first variation is what I call the water amplifier. Remember Sarah's story. She held water, whispered wealth into it, and watched her life transform in less than 2 days. You can blend her method with your coffee ritual. After holding your spoonful of grounds and declaring your overflowing prosperity, place them beside a glass of water. Whisper the same words into the water. This liquid carries my wealth. As I drink, every cell receives overflowing prosperity. Then sip slowly, feeling the ground coffee beans and the water working together. Earth and flow, matter and spirit. Science has already shown that water molecules shift shape when exposed to words and intention. By combining these elements, you saturate both your body and your energetic field with prosperity at a cellular level. The second variation is the mirror technique. This one is not easy, but it is powerful. After you whisper into your ground coffee beans, take them with you to a mirror. Look deeply into your own eyes. Not a quick glance, but a steady, unwavering gaze. Say out loud, "You are wealthy. It's already done. I see it in you." Most people struggle to maintain eye contact with themselves because their subconscious carries shame, guilt, or doubt. But when you can stare into your own reflection and see not the person who has bills, not the person who has struggled, but the wealthy soul already complete, something fundamental shifts. Your self-image, which controls 95% of your behavior, rewrites itself on the spot. Florence always said, "The inner picture creates the outer picture." The mirror method accelerates this truth. The third variation is gratitude acceleration. Gratitude is the frequency of receiver-hip. When you write in gratitude, you send a message to your subconscious that what you are grateful for is already accomplished. During your 48 hours, set a timer for every 3 waking hours. When it rings, stop and write down 3 things you are grateful for as if they have already happened. Not "I'm grateful money is coming," but "I'm grateful for the unexpected 5,000 that arrived today. I'm grateful my bills are paid with ease. I'm grateful for the opportunity that doubled my income." By the end of 2 days, you will have dozens of completed gratitudes, creating what scientists call evidence loops. Your brain accepts these as reality, and your outer world bends to match. The fourth variation is what I call the coffee circle. Instead of doing the ritual alone, you invite your family into it. Each person takes a spoonful of ground coffee beans, holds them in their hands, and speaks a declaration of overflowing prosperity aloud. Then you place all the grounds together in one bowl, symbolizing unity. Why does this matter? Because consciousness multiplies when shared. Collective intention carries a power far beyond individual focus. Families who practice together not only transform their finances, but heal old patterns of scarcity passed down through generations. If you've ever wanted to be the one who breaks the cycle of lack in your lineage, this ritual becomes a sacred tool. The fifth variation is the scent anchor. The smell of coffee alone is powerful. It awakens the brain, sharpens focus, lifts mood. Use this to your advantage. Each time you inhale the aroma of your ground coffee beans, anchor it with the phrase, "Wealth is my nature." Over time, your subconscious will associate the smell of coffee with wealth consciousness. That means every morning, every cafe, every whiff of coffee becomes a trigger that locks you back into overflowing prosperity automatically. This transforms an ordinary daily experience into a spiritual anchor for prosperity. And finally, there is the sealing phrase, a secret Florence herself often hinted at. She taught that words are like seeds, and seeds need to be sealed so they are not stolen by doubt. At the end of each declaration, after whispering into your ground coffee beans, after writing your gratitudes, after looking into your eyes, seal it with this phrase, and it cannot be otherwise. These words lock your assumption in place. They tell your subconscious and the creation itself, this is not a wish, not a request, not a fragile hope. This is truth and it cannot be otherwise. Now, let me be clear. You don't need all of these. 1 or 2 amplifiers are enough to shift your energy to a level where wealth has no choice but to show up. But when you do add them, something astonishing happens. Results accelerate. Sarah used only water and saw her life change in 2 days. Imagine combining water, mirror, gratitude, and the sealing phrase. Imagine drinking overflowing prosperity, seeing it in your own eyes, writing it as fact, and locking it with words. That is not just manifestation. That is spiritual mastery. And here's what excites me most. These variations prevent boredom. Many of you have tried affirmations or vision boards before and gave up because they felt repetitive, dull, lifeless. But the coffee ritual with these amplifiers stays alive. Each practice becomes fresh. Each variation stirs new feelings. And feelings, not thoughts, are what create reality. So tonight, when you begin, start simple. 1 spoonful of coffee, 1 phrase, 1 feeling. Tomorrow add 1 variation, maybe sip the water, maybe look in the mirror, maybe write 3 gratitudes. Don't overwhelm yourself. Layer it slowly, letting your soul choose what resonates. By the end of 48 hours, you'll have woven a tapestry of overflowing prosperity so rich, so multi-dimensional that your old scarcity identity won't be able to survive in its presence. And as you do this, declare in the comments, I choose to amplify my overflowing prosperity. Let those words be your vow that you won't settle for small shifts. You're ready for the flood. You're ready for the overflow. You're ready for overflowing prosperity, amplified beyond measure. By now, you've begun to understand just how powerful the coffee ritual can be. But there's one question that might be stirring in your mind. Why 48 hours? Why not 1 night or 1 week or 30 days like so many other manifestation methods teach? What makes 2 days so sacred, so precise that Florence Scovel Shinn insisted on it again and again? The answer, my friend, is both practical and mystical. Practically 48 hours is just long enough to disrupt the identity of scarcity and establish a new dominant feeling. But not so long that your logical mind has time to destroy it with doubts. It's like breaking a fever. 1 day may give you temporary relief, but the sickness lingers. 2 days, however, resets the entire system. After 48 hours of unwavering focus, your old programming cracks. The rubber band of poverty consciousness that used to snap you back suddenly loses its strength. You've stretched beyond its reach. But there is also a mystical reason. Florence observed it long before neuroscience confirmed it. The subconscious mind reorganizes itself in cycles of 2 days. New neural pathways begin to stabilize at that mark. Quantum physicists today might explain it as probability waves collapsing into a dominant state. Florence simply called it the law of assumption fulfilled. When you assume wealth consistently for 48 hours without checking, without wavering, reality bends to match. It has no choice. Now, here's where it gets even more fascinating. Florence used to hint that 48 hours wasn't just about time. It was about trust. The creation itself tests whether you can hold a state without constant reassurance. If you can, you've proven you're ready. If you can't, the old reality reasserts itself. That's why she called it a window, because it opens briefly, and those who step through find themselves in an entirely new room. Think about how the cycle unfolds. In the first 12 hours, the seed is planted. In the next 12, resistance arises, testing your faith. By the 24th hour, the soil cracks and something new pushes through. By the 36th, signs appear. Little coincidences that aren't coincidences at all. And in the final stretch, the shift locks in. At hour 48, the creation itself hands you evidence so undeniable you can never go back. But here's what almost nobody knows. And this is where I'm going to tease something you'll want to stay for. Florence had a phrase she used to seal her rituals. She never taught it in her books, only to her closest students. Without the seal, the ritual could work temporarily, but the results faded. With the seal, the results multiplied and sustained themselves. She said, "A word spoken at the end is like wax on an envelope. It protects the message until it's delivered." I'm going to share that sealing phrase with you before this video ends. And let me be clear, it is not something you say casually. It is not a throwaway affirmation. It is a spiritual key, and when you use it, you tell the creation itself, "This is final. This cannot be reversed. This is mine." But you'll only understand its true power once you've walked through the entire teaching. That's why I'm saving it for the end. Because only those who are serious, who are ready to complete the journey, can handle the responsibility of the seal. Now, while we wait to reach that moment, let me give you something to anchor your faith. In the meantime, the 48-hour window is not about waiting for money to appear. It's about transforming into the kind of person for whom wealth is inevitable. This is why Florence called it the miracle of assumption. You don't attract money like a magnet drags iron. You become money's natural companion, so it flows to you without resistance. The creation itself doesn't deliver to beggars. It delivers to owners. And for these 2 days, you must own your wealth before it shows up. Let me tell you something personal. I've watched people attempt this ritual and give up at hour 20 because nothing happened. And I've watched others hold steady until hour 48, only to receive emails, calls, deposits, or opportunities that seem to come from nowhere. But nothing comes from nowhere. It comes from the invisible supply. Florence spoke about the infinite storehouse of overflowing prosperity, waiting for you to claim it. 48 hours is simply the code that unlocks the vault. And this is why I'm urging you. Don't skip ahead. Don't abandon the process because you feel impatient. Every hour matters. Every declaration matters. Every breath you take whispering "it's already done" weaves another thread in the fabric of your new reality. And when you reach the final hour, when you apply the sealing phrase, the fabric becomes unbreakable. So, let me ask you right now, will you stay with me until the end? Will you hear the seal that Florence passed down? The words that complete the ritual? If you will, type it in the comments. I'll stay for the seal. Because that phrase isn't just a promise to me, it's a promise to yourself. A promise that you won't give up halfway. A promise that you'll claim the inheritance waiting for you. And as you write it, feel the anticipation building. Feel the certainty that you are not just watching a video. You are walking through a door. On the other side of this door, overflowing prosperity is already waiting. And in just a little while, I'll place the final key in your hand. We are almost at the end of this journey together. And if you've made it this far, if you've held on through every word, every resistance, every doubt, then you are already different than when you started. You may not see it yet in your bank account, but the shift has already begun in your energy, in your breath, in the way your heart beats with possibility instead of fear. And before the 48 hours are complete, there are always signs, little signals from the creation itself that whisper, "Keep going. The breakthrough is near." Florence Scovel Shinn wrote that the creation itself speaks in symbols, and money is only one of them. Sometimes before the windfall, you notice subtle but powerful confirmations. A stranger smiles at you with a kindness that seems out of place. You overhear a conversation about opportunity. You stumble across an unexpected word. Abundance, wealth, prosperity printed on a billboard or sung in a song at just the right moment. These are not coincidences. They are the ripples that appear before the wave crashes on shore. In fact, almost everyone who commits to this practice for 48 hours tells me the same thing. At first, it feels quiet. Then, little things begin to happen. Someone buys them a coffee. They find a forgotten $5 bill in a jacket pocket. They get an email from a company they haven't heard from in years. The small signs are proof that reality is bending, that the invisible supply is beginning to break through the cracks of your old story. And the size of the first signs doesn't matter. What matters is your response. If you dismiss them as too small, you close the window. If you celebrate them as proof that wealth is already flowing, you fling the window wide open. Sarah from Boston, whose story I shared earlier, told me that before the $7,000 appeared in her life, the first sign she noticed was a bird landing on her window sill the morning after her ritual. It carried a small piece of foil in its beak, shining in the sun like silver. She said she felt an electric shock in her chest, as if the bird was delivering a message. Silver wealth, it's already here. Hours later, the call came from her old employer. The bird was the whisper. The phone call was the roar. And Emily, the subscriber who wrote to me just 3 days ago about her water ritual, told me that before her overdue client paid her invoice, she walked into her kitchen and saw her daughter drawing a picture of a rainbow with gold coins at the end. "Mommy, this is for you," her daughter said. Emily laughed, but inside she knew it was a sign. The very next day the money arrived. So I ask you now, what signs are already showing up in your life? Don't brush them off. Don't say it's just a coincidence. Coincidence is the language of the divine. Every little shift in your environment is evidence that you have already crossed into a new frequency. And let me tell you something important. The biggest test comes right before the biggest blessing. Many of you will experience what looks like a setback just before the 48 hours complete. An unexpected bill, a moment of doubt, a friend saying something discouraging. This is not failure. This is the final exam. It is the creation itself asking, will you hold the feeling of wealth, even when it looks like nothing is happening? If you can answer yes, then the reward is guaranteed. Florence called this standing still and seeing the salvation. She wrote, "When man stands still, God acts." That means when you refuse to waver, when you refuse to check your account in fear, when you refuse to let your heart collapse into old patterns, the creation itself rushes to fill the space with new reality. The breakthrough often comes in the last hour, when you least expect it. And here's where I must hold you a little longer, because there is one more piece, one final key that ties all of this together. Florence's students used to say that without it, the ritual worked but faded like a candle burning out. With it, the ritual ignited like wildfire, spreading through every area of life: money, relationships, health, joy. This piece is the sealing phrase, the words that lock your declaration into place, so it cannot be shaken, stolen, or delayed. I will share it with you in just a moment in the final block. But before we get there, I want you to do something for me and for yourself. Take a deep breath. Place your hand over your heart. Whisper softly, "I am already wealthy." Feel it for just a moment. Even if nothing has changed outside, feel it. That feeling is the seed. That feeling is the proof. That feeling is the doorway you've been searching for. Now, in the comments, declare this with me. The signs are here. Let those words be your recognition that your breakthrough has already begun, that the creation itself is whispering in your ear even now. And then stay with me until the very end, because in the next block, I will place the final seal in your hands. The phrase that Florence herself used to make wealth inevitable. Don't miss it. You've walked with me through this entire journey. You've heard the stories. You've felt the resistance. You've learned the practice. You've committed to the 48 hours, and now at last we arrive at the moment. Florence Scovel Shinn reserved only for those who were ready. The final seal. The phrase that locks your manifestation so deeply into the fabric of reality that nothing can undo it. Florence taught that words are not just sounds. They are vibrations, containers of power. She would remind her students that in the beginning, the creation itself was spoken into existence. And just as creation began with a word, so too can your new life of overflowing prosperity. But here's the difference. Ordinary affirmations can fade because they are spoken with hope. The seal, however, is spoken with finality. It is not a request. It is not a wish. It is the announcement that what you've declared already exists. The phrase is simple, but do not mistake its simplicity for weakness. When spoken with authority, it becomes a spiritual command. Here it is finished, it is done, and it cannot be otherwise. Say it with me now. Whisper it first so your heart feels it. Then speak it aloud with strength so your body knows it. Finally, declare it with authority so the creation itself hears and obeys. It is finished. It is done, and it cannot be otherwise. This is the wax on the envelope. This is the key that locks the door behind you, so you cannot go back to scarcity. This is the vibration Florence passed to her closest students, the phrase that turns a 40-year ritual into a lifetime of wealth. Now pause and notice how you feel. Lighter, stronger, as if something ancient inside you just shifted. That is because the seal is not only words, it is energy, and once spoken, it cannot be unsaid. The creation itself is already rearranging itself to match the command you've just given. From this moment forward, you are no longer someone who hopes for wealth. You are someone who lives inside wealth. Opportunities will rise to meet you. Resources will find you. Doors that were once closed will swing open. And when they do, remember this day. Remember this moment. Remember the phrase that sealed your new reality. Before we close, let me speak to your heart directly. If this teaching has awakened something in you, if it has reminded you of the power you always carried but perhaps forgot, then don't let this be the end. Subscribe now. Not later, not tomorrow, now. Because every video on this channel is not just content. It is an activation, another key placed in your hand. And for those of you who feel called to go even deeper, to not only receive, but to give, there is a way to plant a seed right now. Below this video is the super thanks button. When you give through it, whether it's 1 or 10, you are not just supporting this channel. You are sowing into your own overflowing prosperity. Florence always said that every seed planted returns multiplied. What you release in faith today, you will harvest in wealth tomorrow. Think of it not as a donation, but as a declaration. I give because I already have, and the creation itself rushes to prove you right. Now together, let us seal this journey as a community. Wherever you are, in your living room, your office, your car, say it with me one final time. It is finished. It is done. And it cannot be otherwise. Let those words echo in your heart. Let them vibrate in your chest. Let them ripple into the quantum field around you, until reality itself cannot help but obey. And as you go into the next 48 hours, watch closely. The signs will come. The opportunities will appear. The money will flow. And when it does, return here and write your testimony in the comments so others can see and believe. Because this is not just your story. It is our story. This is not just your wealth. It is the wealth of an entire community awakening to its inheritance. You have crossed the threshold. You have planted the seed. You have sealed the ritual. From this moment forward, overflowing prosperity is not coming. It is here, and so it is.